Hello and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses, the best Leicester City fan channel on the internet. This is Good Morning Foxes, although we like to call it these days Bad Morning Foxes. Leicester City are on the back of another loss in the Premier League. I'm joined by Rich, I'm joined by Manny, and I'm joined by Anil. Let's get straight into greeting them. Anil, mate, what's going on? How you doing?
Awful. As you say, every time we watch a game, you go, I'm fed up of saying this is the worst performance of the season. It just keeps getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, Manny, mate, we witnessed it all together. Is that what Anil just said? Do you think it was the worst one yet? Because we've had a lot of them. Wolves was probably Wolves, Brentford. I mean, there's so many to remember, but was that the worst one?
I think this was the worst one in highlighting our weaknesses. You know, it really showed where our problems are, in my opinion, and nothing in attack, nothing in defence. But then to compound the error, it's not too bad because Ipswich lost. But then when you watch Wolves beat Villa, that's a real kick in the teeth. And getting the 0 points really sat in after that result.
Yeah, I mean, Rich, I know you try to stay positive as much as possible, mate, but that was really shit.
You always say I'm positive. I think I'm just. I think I have a. I don't know. I want to say realist view, or I like to play devil's advocate a lot. But no, I think it was utter crap, mate. It was to be honest with you. So after about 20 minutes, I started playing on my phone while I was watching the game. I never do that. Like I do it during other games because I'm not bothered. But like honestly, I was just like, this is absolute dross, and so I just started like playing Candy Crush or some crap on my phone. You know what I mean? Just to keep me entertained.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, no, I hear you, mate. I'm not surprised. We had on the watch along yesterday so many comments. I mean, you could have done that, Rich. If you're bored, you could have joined into BTG, mate. Go on. No, we had a lot of comments yesterday. Just say, well, I switched it off after 3, which of course was before half time. Just before we get into it all, let's just see what some people in the chat are saying. Nigel says, "What a shambles of an excuse of my football club for 55 years, and they are an embarrassment." Peaches, a Forest fan, says, "Morning to you, Peaches." Keith says, "Morning," and Ant says, "First away end that felt as much anger at top as there was at Rudkin. It's turning. It does seem to be turning. It paused for a week when we beat Spurs, but it's back again." Let's start from the beginning. Let's just touch on it briefly. The lineup now, and Neil, we spoke about it on Matchday Live before the game started, but what did you make to it? Were you a little bit surprised? Because now that I've had time to think about it, I actually think it was the wrong decision to put Mads Hermansen back in. Now, we know he's the best goalkeeper at the club, but for me, Jakob had a man-of-the-match performance against Spurs. He's waited so long to have his chance, and he's just been dropped at the first possible occasion when Mads Hermansen's back fit. And is he even back fit? That's the question. You know what I mean? So what did you make to that decision by Ruud van Nistelrooy?
I wasn't surprised with that team lineup. I thought most managers, especially after a long losing streak, will keep the same team. Mads coming in, given just the fact that he's been so impressive for us, I think made sense. But I think you're right that it transpired pretty quickly that he didn't look quite right. He didn't look match fit. He looked sluggish, slow to react. I guess every player coming back is going to be like that. We don't know what he's in training. So I don't know. I think it's more the way we played rather than the selection. But I come back to something that you said on the instant match yesterday, Locks, which is it doesn't seemingly matter who we play. They're all just rubbish. So it does feel a little bit like that. But we'll come to it. But I think it was more his decision to play the high line with the same team. We didn't have to play that way. That just played into Everton's hand. But I think on paper, you would probably say the other one. I think you'd always see you need your strongest players who've been struggling. You need to get Mads in there.
Yeah, what do you make to it, Manny? Is it just because we lost that I'm saying this? If we won, I'd be saying, yeah, thank God Mads is back. You know, he's going to save us all. But I don't know. I don't know what to feel. I don't know, because even at the time, I think I'm a little bit surprised by that. So yeah, what did you make to the decision?
It's a type 50-50 call, isn't it? You know, you want to get Mads back in as soon as possible. Realistically, he's our best keeper. But then Jakob did have a man of the match performance. You want to keep him confident, and there will be a time when Jakob probably takes over from Mads. So long term, you could argue that Jakob probably will be our keeper, certainly next season. But I mean, that's not the differentiating factor why we lost yesterday. I mean, if we had Jakob in goal, we're still losing that game. But there are other players who are directly targeted, involved in the goals, that I think they have made a much more of an impact as the result yesterday. So I don't look back and say, yeah, probably Jakob looking back would have been the choice, but I don't think it made much of a difference in the end.
Yeah, I mean, talk to me, Rich. You know, as I just said, you know, we know Mads Hermansen is our best goalkeeper. But what did you make to it all?
Yeah, to be honest, man, I'm just going to echo what everyone said. Like, you do want to get him back in because, like you say, his match fitness, sharpness, whatever you want to call it, wasn't there. But he's only going to get that by playing matches. So it's, you know, I see it from that point, but I also see the point of Stelatic had such a good game. You know, and he's been growing in confidence every week. You know, I think it would have been good to see him carry on, you know, but I, like you say, I'm just going to echo what everyone else said, really. It is a 50-50. You damned if you do, damned if you don't. And as you say, it wouldn't have mattered. We could have had, you know, prime Petr Cech in. We ain't winning that game.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, Anil, who was the standout shit performer? I mean, it was Yannick Vestergaard, wasn't it?
100%. I've not often seen a 0 out of 10 performance, but that was it. Horrific at every possible side of the game. Just the way that he ducks out. I have started doing the analysis, which is probably going to be one of the most horrific things to watch ever. And it's just basically pointing at Yannick and laughing at him. He's just so bad. And the thing is, it's not just the lack of pace. It's just his mental attitude wasn't even there. He was pulling out of challenges, which is ridiculous. I don't understand how that's possible. And I think there's got to be some serious words. I think coming up this season, it was always a thing that people knew. It's like we knew that he struggled in the Premier League before. He was good in the Championship, but we were playing a different way. So playing this different way, could it work in the Premier League? And we know that he's good on the ball and good at passing. And I do think that in the first part of the season, he wasn't necessarily getting caught out because of the things that he's poor at. But I think since Ruud's come in, it's a fact that he is. He's being ruthlessly exposed for the physical attributes that he doesn't have, which makes it baffling why he's been playing in the system. But this was truly, truly horrific. And he's got to be dropped from the next team selection. I'm wondering what Ruud will do. I think because it's a cup game, he probably will be dropped. But as Manny kept saying yesterday, 3-year contract, good grief.
Well, Manny, I mean, go for it, mate, because I know you've got a lot to say about this, and you know, I know you don't want to repeat yourself too much, but you said from the start, you know, Yannick Vestergaard should not be starting. I mean, talk to me, mate. What did you make to his performance? Because he got, I mean, we disagree slightly. You blame him for all four, or, well, you probably blame him for all four, even though he wasn't on the pitch for the last. But I think he was definitely at fault for two of them for sure.
He had a role to play in all the first three. I've been through all the goals multiple times. And then it took me back to something I said during the halftime match day live against Tottenham last week. I said, we've got to be careful. They are targeting long balls in behind Vestergaard and fast. All they're trying to do is get that man turning because we know he can't turn. So as long as the striker can get a run on fast in behind Vestergaard, that ball can cause chaos. And whenever there was no pressure on the long ball, so there's no pressure on Tarkowski, there's no pressure on Garner for the third, no pressure on Pickford for the first. Moyes has specifically targeted an area of weakness. They've targeted Vestergaard, and they've got 3 goals out of it one way or the other. Now, Fast looks terrible for the second goal in particular, but he's trying to mop up Vestergaard not being able to do his job. His positioning's out of place. In the first goal, he's about 1.5, 2 metres behind the defence, so he's not in a flat line. He's so scared to try and attack the ball moving forward because he has no pace. But then when he turns, he's the biggest chugger I've ever seen on a pitch. So what do you expect? Teams are actively targeting this individual, and everyone else looks awful trying to mop up a mess. There was essentially, I'm not saying it's his fault, but they are targeting his weaknesses because they're so obvious and plain, and they result in chances. It's so simple to do. You hit it long behind Vestergaard. If he heads it, you compete for the second ball with physicality. If he doesn't head it or the ball bounces, chaos ensues. Simplest game plan there is. Spurs tried it last week, we got away with it. Everton tried it this week, we got absolutely punished. Week after week, teams will do the same. unless this guy just ends up on the bench.
Rich, as you can tell, Manny really doesn't like Yannick Vestergaard. And my whole argument yesterday towards Manny was that they are all as bad as each other. And I genuinely believe that, because I think that if we're not beaten by balls in behind Yannick Vestergaard, you'll concede goals like we did at the end, which was just two bozos playing, trying to pass to each other in Fass and Okoli. I mean, I just think they're all terrible, which is why we are where we are.
It's poor decision making, isn't it? And I think, well, it's actually, it is everything. It is the lack of physicality, because, someone's already put it, in a comment, that first one, what is Soumaré doing there? Because he's meant to be, how many times I watched the preview, obviously, with Luke and Neil, and they were talking, the physicality, his strength, his power. Well, if that's the limit of his strength and power, my word, my 15-year-old son would knock him off the ball. So it was unbelievable. So the thing is, I think that Vestergaard's expecting him to get that, which you would. Now you would also expect him to plan for the worst and hope for the best, plan for the worst. But there's a limit. There's an expectation of, he's going to do a job. Great. Oh no, he's somehow just let that guy get around him. So, but then everyone, like you say, mate, everyone was playing poor. I think at the end there, why Okoli is trying to pass to someone literally half a foot away from you, just especially when he's facing his own goal. Like for Okoli, you need to just drive, take it away. Don't pass it to someone who's facing his own goal. What's he going to do? It was a horrendous decision. I think it's just decision making on the whole has been terrible. I think I put in our group chat about, we had a break on, and there was a run past Vardy. So, obviously Vardy's facing his own goal. Ball comes into him, and I think it was Mavididi. I can't remember, to be honest with you. It might have been Decordover-Reid. Went to his right and just was absolutely bombing on. And rather than passing it to him, he did a huge pass back, and it went almost back to all our defence. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if it was Winks literally 5 yards away from me, you go, because then Winks has got a much better pass on, forward Decordover-Reid or Mavididi was fine. But he didn't. And it's that for me, it's just decision making across the board has been absolutely horrendous in that game. And I think that's what's cost us. I think our skill levels are obviously, and ability wise, are already very low. Then when you then add in terrible decision making, it's a terrible recipe.
You know what? Yeah, I think you bang on there, mate. I mean, Anil, is what do you make to what Richard said about Soumaré? Because we've spoken quite highly about. Well, we've spoken very highly of him. We said that he's kind of turned his I suppose Leicester career around this season, but there have been in that space, I don't know how many games it's been since he came back into the team, maybe 15 games or something like that. There have been a couple games thrown in there where he's been the old Soumaré. I mean, what do you think that is? Why is that? Why do we still see every now and then just that Soumaré that looks like he can't be asked? Because I think yesterday was one of them games where he looked a bit off.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird because, I mean, look, we wrote him off many times in the past, and all of a sudden, after a run of games, he starts getting it together. But you're right, he was so poor on the physical side of the game, which is so weird given that he was monstering Spurs last time round. Admittedly, Everton have got much more physical players, but you think he'd be going into this game with like a bit of a pomp and, wanting to show what he can do, and he just got totally out-muscled. He was awful as well yesterday. I think the reality is, though, with Soumaré, a little bit like Vestergaard, it's like, they look good in a really struggling team now, but these players were in the squad 2 years ago when we got relegated, and they didn't see the light of day in the first team. They were nowhere near good enough, a team that already got relegated. So they're playing for this one, and now they might look a bit better. But how many of them? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what happens to Soumaré, if he's Premier League standard or not. If one of the other teams will take a chance on him, I don't know. But you look at him yesterday and you think this player is not very good. He just did nothing of contribution. So it's sad because we were saying if we want to stay up, we need like key performances from, because we were awful yesterday. At least El Khanous still looked like the one player on the Leicester team that might have something about him, but Soumaré didn't, and that was a big disappointment from him, given that he had been good in previous games.
Do you mind if I make a point on Soumaré?
Yeah.
I played the other day and I completely forgot. You know what I found really interesting? How many years has he been with us now?
It's 3 years now, right?
3 years. Yeah. Do you think he'd not learn the language by now? Because if I was working in another country and I knew I was signing a 3-4 year contract, I'd learn the language. And he did an interview the other week, and I was absolutely shocked that he didn't know the language. And for me, I don't know, I might just be, who knows? But for me, that shows a real lack of character. Like the fact that you've what are you just expecting that you're actually not going to stay, and you wanted to leave at the first point? Because for me, soon as, let's say I signed, I got hired by a company in Brazil, whatever, no problem. I'm learning Portuguese. You know what I mean? Like it's as simple as that. So there's I just think that there's an element there of his head's not in it. Because otherwise he would be better at speaking English after 3 years. Yeah, just a random point.
Yeah, what do you think to that, Manny? Because I personally, I think that the improvements he's shown this season show that his head is in it. But then again, if you look at all of the bad moments he's had, the inconsistency, and the fact that what Rich said, he's not even learned English. I mean, it's not a good look, is it?
I wouldn't put that in any factor at all. Have you ever seen British footballers go abroad?
Well, it's but it's a little bit different.
Unico can speak fluent Spanish. Like Kane is literally learning German. I know loads of them that can speak.
Kane can't speak English.
Speaks Spanish. Yeah.
Look, come on. Most of the time, these players. Remember, he's been on loan for one of those years. He's been here. He's been in and out of the team. He's not exactly been a stalwart and been made to feel like he's part of the family and we're going to hang your hat on you and you commit totally to Leicester. Half the time we've been shuffling out the door.
I'd say this season he has. This season he has.
And what's his performance has been like this season? He's having one bad game in every 5 or 6, and we want to knock him for. I wouldn't knock him for the one bad game he does. It's going to be inconsistent. No Premier League player, not one, plays 38 games fantastically every week. Not a single one. Even Mo Salah, when they lost home to Forest. Everybody is allowed a bad day. It's about how many bad days you have, right?
But there's bad and there's catastrophically bad.
And all the things that we're going to talk about his play, we were already 2-0 down in the game away to Goodison. What does that do to your mentality? You're already on the back foot. They are hungry. The crowd are up for it. We're deflated. There's Idrissa Gueye and Decore there. They're not giving you a second. They're fighting you all the time. And your partner is the Oompa Loompa Harry Stinks next to you, 5'9", absolutely gust of wind, and he's gone at Goodison. Why? What do you expect from Soumaré? You watch when Wolf is back, and Wolf is back soon by all reports. When Wolf is next to him, he has the freedom to not worry so much about defensive responsibilities, and we can see this higher press Soumaré, who's ball carrying, who's trying to find a winger or put a slide pass through. So my contention is he will be much better with Wolf next to him.
Let me just say, though, I think with Wolf is what we did with Mads yesterday, which is we're expecting miracles when they're not going to happen. At the start of the season, we had Mads, we had Wolf, we even had Fatal. We were still struggling, even with that manager. I think we look better than we do now, but I'm just saying, don't magically think just because Wolf's going to come in that we're not going to be on the back foot massively against Arsenal. We absolutely are. And with the confidence low, it's just a fact.
I want to talk about something now, which is going to cause a bit of an argument. Not an argument, but Manny's going to piss me off, and I already know. So I'll come to you first, Rich. Right, me and Manny keep having this discussion and disagreement about signings. With signings, we're being linked with these players left, right, and centre, which we know ain't going to happen. Right, Akpom, Lamptey. Players like this, right? And my whole point is that, well, if we're not going to sign anyone, which it looks like at the moment, I would love an Akpom to come in because it's reinforcement, whether he should or shouldn't start ahead of Vardy, whatever, right? But my whole point is that we are currently going down, and if somebody comes in who scored 28 goals 2 years ago, who scored 14 goals this season or last season, whenever it was, it gives you even just a little bit more of a chance of staying up. But Manny over here, and he will get his chance in a minute, he's like, no, Akpom's rubbish. He's not better than Vardy, so we shouldn't sign him. I mean, what's your take on that, Rich? Because I think we desperately need something, and I don't care at this stage what that is.
I think you've both got valid points. I think I am going to kind of sit on the fence, but I think, I watched obviously the buyer avoid show the other day.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, Manny, I completely disagreed with your point on youth, because for every person you say that, oh, look at them relying on them for youth, like as an example, Man U, yeah, great, okay, Ahmad, but what about Rasmus Højlund? What about Garnacho? You know what I mean? Like in every single one of those teams that you go, yeah, there's youth they're relying on. There's also a load of crap that they're relying on that's you. And the only one that's not is Liverpool, who are relying on older heads and they're winning the league probably at a canter. And also, you know, Notts Forest. Again, some of the people that are performing every week are usually of a higher age. Now, I also think that within that, you absolutely need that youth who just don't care. As an example, Bill El-Kanous. He is young. He does not care. He was the only one that looked like doing anything yesterday. But to go further your point, yeah, I would, to not get splinters then, Ant. I'm gonna firmly side with yourself, Locks. I think that we need some signings just to freshen the place up. Now, will it save us? I don't know. Probably not. But I still think we need signings to freshen the place up, and then it then gives you more options for the next transfer window. Right, we know what position we're in. We're in a better standing to then do some business, whether that's outgoings, ingoings, etc. So you've both got very good points, but I'm leaning towards yourself, Locks.
Man, I'm going to wait you even longer. I'm going to make you wait even longer. I'm going to come to a nil now. This is just a bully Manny session, which he can take, and then he can come back at us. A nil. Again, I'll say the same thing to you, mate. What Rich said there, you just need someone to freshen up the squad, in my opinion. I mean, even when we signed Tete, Christensen, and Suter, we picked up a couple wins after that, right? You know, we take a couple wins now. So I just think we need something. And Manny actually said to me he would rather no signings than Akpom. And I find that crazy.
The thing is, it's too late now. It's the 2nd of February. We said this at the start of the window where we were optimistic as we thought, okay, they've brought in Ruud, the new manager, so they must have a plan to want to stay up this season. So we're going to hit the window. We're probably going to make 3-4 signings. There's all these rumours of money, and we've seen it before, right? Wolves and Villa, the season that we got relegated, they were actually below us. And after the World Cup, they went hard. They bought the right players, and they ended up staying up, and we got relegated. So we thought Top's learned his lesson. That's why he's got rid of Cooper early. He's going to get a new manager in. It's going to give us a big freshen up, and we're going to have a chance for the end of the season. And for whatever reason, we just haven't done that. And so we are going down. I don't know. It's now that it's the 2nd of February, I'm not really sure what difference it is, because the answer isn't a 3 million fullback from Parma. You need to, those clubs got out of it, because I say that was the season that Wolves signed Cunha. They signed big money players that made the difference to keep them up. Unless we're going to do that, we have no chance. So I don't know. There is almost a possibility of why get just a lone player on for a bit. I know what you're saying. For the short term, it gives you something to look forward to, something to freshen it up. But if that player just ends up being another Edouard, not on the bench again yesterday, by the way, Buonanotte's on loan, Ruud doesn't even use him for whatever reason, then I don't actually see the point of it. So I don't know. It's too late now. If I was hoping, like I say, that we'd have made those 1 or 2 big transfers right at the start of the window, maybe even have them lined up. Oh my God, how optimistic were we? And then, you know, we could have got going, but damage has been done now.
Go on then, Manny, mate. Come back at us. What have you got to say, mate?
When will everybody learn? You sign the wrong players, it compounds the issue. It doesn't improve it. Rewind to the end of the last transfer window. There's a day of 2 to go. Oh, we're desperate for a striker. Oh, Edson Edouard's available. Should we do it? Yeah, it's better than nothing, right? Let's get Edson Edouard in. How does that work out when you're paying him 90 grand a week and a £8 million loan fee for a year? All it does is create larger PSR issues down the line. And then when they come to roost and there's limited transfer funds to spend next summer or beyond or whatever, and we get a PSR ban, everybody say, oh, well, you should have spent more money. Oh, you spent too much money. You're stupid. You have to spend the money wisely. And that means players who can come in and make a difference, especially in our current situation, sorry. So Odsonne Edouard, we pay him 90 grand a week. He's a striker. And what we talk about now, Chupa Akpom, another striker on probably 80, 90 grand a week on loan, that again doesn't replace Vardy, who's a second striker, which we used to try with Iheanacho, which doesn't work. Now this guy ends up on the bench. What's the point of having a loan signing that ends up on the bench? That's not going to do any good to our long-term prospects. It's not going to do anything good to our short-term prospects. We have to get it into our head. Either we get the right players in across the spectrum. I don't just mean youth players. If you want to sign, an experienced player for some particular reason, it has to be one who's hungry, who's ready to play, who's fit, who's motivated, who has some particular reason why he wants to come here beyond just cash. No mercenaries, people with hunger who want to prove a difference. Chupa Akpom's been round the houses. He's 29. He's never found a home for a good reason. He doesn't walk in and save us from getting relegation in the Premier League. So there's no point. We've got 2 loan signings. We need a right winger and we need a centre-back. Focus on those 2 positions first, and then we can talk about whatever options are available.
No, but the point is, Manny, that we're not signing any of them, right? We're not signing either of them.
You're telling me, is it better to sign... I don't want to say a bad word this early in the morning, but do you want me to sign rubbish or do you want to sign nothing? I'd rather have nothing and say, look, it's save the PSR money, let our current squad do whatever they can do. In my head, apart from profile difference, there's no difference between Edouard, Akpom, Daka. They're the same standard, and that standard not being good enough. Vardy will have his days. He's also like the 8th highest striker for goals in the Premier League this season at his age. So I don't think Vardy is a major issue. It's the service to Vardy. Forget talking about strikers. It's not a problem. He's not going to play.
Well,
disagree with that massively. He's missed sitters this season. Yeah. He's missed goals that I would score. Yeah. So I'm not.
So is Haaland. Haaland didn't score for multiple games. Was missing sitters for fun. Every striker misses sitters.
Not as many as he does, though.
Yeah, the point is that it's not been the service money, right? Because he has had service and he's not put them away. That's the point. It's not.
Look, he's missed chances. But do you think Chuka Akpom is going to start walking and start taking chances for fun?
We're not saying that. We're not saying that.
What's the point of what are you saying? What's the point of signing Chuka Akpom unless he's going to take those chances?
Because I actually disagree with you. I think something is better than nothing. I think something is better than nothing. And we have ended, we're about to, sorry. It's not ended yet. We've got 24 hours. We are about to end for 2 January windows in a row with a weaker squad than we started. That is criminal. The first year we were fighting for a title, and the second year we were fighting to stay up. And both Januaries, we are ending with a weaker squad. Hey, that is like... I'll say it again, bozo. It is bozo like mindset. I don't know what they're thinking. Neil, please calm me down, man. I don't know what they're thinking.
Bozo Tinted Glasses, new name for the channel. That's what's happening here. I agree, but what can we do? I mean, everyone can see it. We don't understand what's going on. No transparency. Some interesting comments here, like people saying, is top selling the club? Sometimes you think with the lack of activity, it's possible. We must be resigned to relegation now. It really showed me. Like I said, I mean, even though I really disliked him, you have to look back now and say, what was the point of sacking Steve Cooper if you're bringing in another manager and you're not going to back him? It's a waste of time. Like, if you're not going to give Ruben, if you're only going to give some, because that's the thing, I don't think he's doing a good job. It's a fact of 7 losses out of 8. But if you're literally got no backing, and I'm sorry, but even if we bring one player in on the last day of the transfer deadline day, that's not good enough. You need him in for the 1st of January. There you go. So, yeah, I don't know. It is bozo. There's something that stinks at the club. We all know it. There's something deeper for sure, because I don't think it makes sense really that a team that's struggling is going to end up probably spending the least out. And I think even Southampton have signed players. Then you say something that Wrexham has spent more money in the January transfer window so far than Leicester City. It's mental.
Can I ask a question, guys? I'm playing a bit of devil's advocate here. And do you think that if we'd have kept Cooper, we'd have more points right now than we do under Ruud van Nistelrooy?
I mean, I'm going to say, no, you know what? I you know me. I am the furthest away from a Cooper lover or Cooper fan, right? But my whole thing with the whole transfer window as well, right, is that I think Cooper is a better manager with a shit squad. If you know what I mean by that, Anil, you probably know what I mean by that, right? With limited tools, I think Cooper probably can do. Manny shakes his head, but Ruud van Nistelrooy's style of football does require a better quality of player. Do you agree with that, Anil, or not? Am I chatting rubbish?
No, I do. I agree with it, but I think I can see exactly where Rich is coming from. But I think it's irrelevant because Cooper lost the dressing room, as proven by the fact that players went to top. So it's irrelevant. I would say get it out of your head. Whether he is or he isn't, anytime, any team, if you lose the dressing room, it's over.
Yeah,
Would we have got
but I was just asking the question because I think we'd have had more draws. I don't think we'd have had loads of wins. I just think we'd have, out of those 7 losses, I think we'd have had a couple of draws in there, and then and maybe the odd win. I don't know, but it's just interesting to think. Is it? I just thought, would we have lost 7 in a row? Would we be in the same position, or would we have just got 3 draws and no wins, and so be in the same position? But just it looks better because you've not got as many losses. Who knows?
If we had Cooper, we'd have got beaten by bigger margins. Come on, you guys are revisionist
No.
history.
We wouldn't. No, we would.
Wait. Rich, you've had your point. Let me have a go. Mads has been out for multiple games. We had Danny Ward briefly in goal. Okay, that was corrected. And by the way, there's no convincing that Steve Cooper wouldn't also pick Danny Ward in goal. We've also had Ndidi out. Fatawu was unavailable for Ruud throughout his tenure. Steve Cooper chose to keep Fatawu on the bench half the time. On the bench. He actively chose Ayew over Fatawu. Sackable offence instantaneously if you think that's ever an option. Steve Cooper had the full plethora of the squad, plus a summer transfer window to have an influence on signings. Who do you think put the influence on to sign Oliver Skipp? Who's worked with Oliver Skipp before? Who definitely recommended Oliver Skipp? Steve Cooper. What is a massive problem that we are facing today? His influence on our signings. We had Bobby playing yesterday and Jordan playing yesterday, and Skipp's on the bench, doesn't get a minute. All Steve Cooper related. It's largely we're in this predicament. Ruud is trying to pick up the pieces with an injury-ravaged team. There's nothing else anybody could have done. If we had Steve Cooper, don't pretend that life was better. He had better options, and we were equally as bad as well. No identity, players didn't like it, changing lineups every week, changing formations. The guy didn't have a Scooby-Doo. I mean, come on, let's forget Steve Cooper.
I get a lot of what you say there, mate, but you could say the exact same thing for every single team we played. Name one team that isn't injury ravaged right now. Now look at Tottenham, look at Everton. They're missing their top striker. You know what I mean? They put 4 past us. Like you can cook for every
Liverpool, Chelsea, Forest, Brentford.
Yeah, loads of they've all got certain injuries. They've all every week. We're missing so and so player. Like you could put this for every single team. I'm not saying that I advocate for Cooper. By the way, it was just merely a point of saying.
Name one club that's had their top 3 key players.
Hold on a minute. You've had your point. Let me say my point. We've literally just lost 4-0 to Everton. I tell you now, under Steve Cooper, we don't lose that game 4-0.
5-0.
No. I'm going to send this to a nil because I am on Rich's side. We didn't get battered until we played Brentford after Cooper was sacked. Is that right, Anil? I'm pretty sure that's right. We didn't.
Guys, waste of time talking about Steve Cooper. He's not our manager anymore. Move on with it. Why do we care? He's gone. I told you the players weren't playing for him, so we wouldn't have got the extra points. I'm sorry, we wouldn't. The players stopped playing for a manager. It's irrelevant. It's happened with every manager. Once they give up on them and they throw the towel in and they deliberately try to get the manager sacked, which is basically what was happening, it's over. So no, he wouldn't have, because they would have got him out of the club any other way.
For the sake of speculation, you can do some direct comparisons. So Steve Cooper and Ruud van Nistelrooy have played the same team, 3 times? So Steve Cooper played Tottenham at home. How did we do? We drew. Right, Van Nistelrooy, with an injury-ravaged team, played Tottenham away. We won. We also played Villa. We lost at home 2-1. We lost away 2-1. But Ruud had a worse team to play. Which other teams we played? We played Everton at home. We drew 1-1, got outplayed. We played Everton away. We got battered. Minimal difference. So Ruud... Well, Everton have a better manager, at the same time. So that's Dyche's... Steve Cooper played Dyche's dismal Everton.
Manager than Moyes is a
correct.
Better manager
Correct. So Ruud had a harder job because he had to face Moyes, not Dyche, right? So it's harder for Ruud with a worse team away against a better manager. If you try and do those micro comparisons, you can see that Ruud has not had the opportunities that Cooper had. And I agree with ultimately with Neil. This is a complete waste of time, red herring. And anybody who just thinks we want Cooper back, I don't know what you've been watching.
No, we don't. No one's saying that. I think what it is fair to say though, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, Anil, on this topic. One thing that I think is fair to say, Neil, is that maybe you look back on it now and you just say we were probably a little bit too harsh. We're not saying he didn't deserve to get sacked. We're not saying that he should be here now, but we're saying we were a little bit too harsh on Steve Cooper.
I personally disagree with that because you could see the players' body language that like he lost the players. We said that even in the preseason friendlies that for whatever reason it wasn't something that worked out. It was the wrong appointment. So I just think he would be in exactly
the players though, Neil.
Yeah, could be. But then that's still the manager. That a stronger manager is going to get in and make it that those players aren't like that. I definitely agree with you. I mean, I think Wolfie's put a comment here saying that it doesn't mean Cooper wasn't good. Doesn't mean that Ruud van Nistelrooy is a solution. That's probably true. You could make the argument that as soon as Enzo left, the season was over right away, right? Because we've made decisions based around him. But yeah, as I say, I just think I think it's a bit delusional to think that like with that, it was all going the same way. All the data was the same. It was all headed in one direction. We were the statistical outliers. The car crash was coming. It's just this hit someone else, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, how long will it be before Ruud loses the players? Because
might already have lost them, to be honest.
Maybe so. So I want to bring this comment up from Ant. The players are more responsible because the attitude has stank for years, throwing managers under a bus. When it starts getting difficult, it goes back to the Puel days. Looking ahead, we have obviously Man United coming up. I mean, in the FA Cup, that in itself will obviously be a tough game. I mean, we always say this when there's a cup game coming up, but do we care? Do we care about the FA Cup and Manchester United in that? What Anil, talk to me, mate. What's your thoughts on that one that's coming up? Would you just sack it off? Will your Koulibaly debut? What are you thinking?
I would like to see him try more stuff. I did say that I felt at half-time yesterday when you're 3-0 down, I think a better manager probably would have made 4 or 5 changes because the game is over. You need to start sending... Like, again, this is about losing the players. You need to say, well, you're playing rubbish. You're out of the team now. We're going to give it to someone else to have a chance. I mean, obviously, if you keep doing that time and time again, you're not going to get performances either. But Ruud has tried to keep a solid and settled team for quite a while now, and the team's let him down. So he's got to make changes. So he should use the cup game as an experiment. And I'd like to see him keep those changes going in. Or maybe we need to start doing forward planning now and thinking, like, okay, what is our team going to be likely in the championship? Who are the players that are going to stick around? And start playing them now to get games, because that's really where we are. I mean, I know that might sound harsh because we're still only like 2 points out of the relegation zone or something like that. So we could keep battling. But yeah, it's looking pretty poor. But yeah, look, we want to stay in the league. It'd be nice to have a run in the cup. But if we have to choose the two this year, we choose staying in the league.
Yeah, Rich, mate, do you just would you just give up on the FA Cup, just not worry about it? I mean, yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
It'd be amazing if we won it and then got relegated. So we
God.
the championship. But no, it's for me, absolutely, and it's a game that it's good to get minutes. You know what I mean? Put Mads back in, get him more minutes. Get these players. Like you say, Koulibaly. But no, for me, it's just a game that we could do without.
Money, magic of the FA Cup and all that, mate.
When it comes to the FA Cup and when you're in a relegation battle, I always remember, for us oldies out there, the 96-97 season, Middlesbrough ended up in both cup finals, lost both, and got relegated. And they were so cream crackered, their players were, by the end of those relegation games in the Premier League. They had nothing left. And also, if you've got a relegation battle, but you've got a Wembley final potentially coming up, or a Wembley semi-final coming up, players can't help be slightly distracted. We don't need the distraction. I remember before the QPR game, everybody said, it's good we played a strong lineup. We need to build the confidence because we've lost 6 in a row and it's going to help our Premier League form. We played Palace about 3 days later, got absolutely spanked. It did nothing for our Premier League form whatsoever. All it does is risk further injuries to key players in a tournament that we are not going to win. I would have advocated playing Michael Golding and Alves and all the others in the last round at home against QPR. Play every single kid who wants to get game time. Jeremy Monga, anybody. Give them all game time, except that you're not going to win. You're not there to win. You're there just to give them some game time experience of game day, etc. So I would go with the same away Man United. I want to see Michael Golding. I want to see whoever we've got left that hasn't had game time. I want to see Odsonne Edouard. I just give these guys some game time. I don't care if we get spanked 7-0. I don't want to be in the cup. I want to stay in the Premier League.
Yeah. It's well, that should be the focus. Okay, so the last topic I want to move on to, guys, and I picked this moment because I know we've got Manny and we've got Rich here who are very have very strong opinions on this. I like to joke around and call Manny and Rich happy clappers. And Nil's not quite a happy clapper. Manny, do you want to do it this week? Give me a smile and start clapping.
Silence.
No, he's not doing it. He's not doing it. And it is the board. You know, again, chance towards the board and all of that in the away end last night. If you haven't seen it, go see the matchday vlog after this one that Imran did, and you can hear all the chanting that goes on. Chance to the players as well, not fit to wear the shirt. Obviously, a toxic away end, and it's going to be an even more toxic home end come the Arsenal game, the day of the protest. But a nil. You know, we had a little break for a few days with the Tottenham win. People just put it at the back of their minds for a couple of days, I think. But now, you know, another loss. And if the losses keep coming, it's going to get ugly, isn't it?
Yeah, and deservedly so. I think looking outside of the result, I mean, Tony just put a comment here. The squad is weaker than we opened January with. That's a fact. Second January transfer in the window in a row. That's happened, as you mentioned before, Locks. But the thing is, it's just, what are they doing? You can totally understand why fans are against it. There's something weird going on, right, with the lack of spending, what's happening. I'll be honest, I actually feel it does feel, and I felt this for about last 2 months or so, that it feels like the beginning of the end of the King Power era for me, because almost from their end, even more than our end, that it just seems that their heart's not really in it either. If their heart was in it, they would have done way different action than what they did this January, and therefore I think it's right. And if it's 2 relegations in 3 years, that's what happens. I mean, it's funny because we played Everton yesterday, right? Everton have had a miserable 8 to 10 years when they had Fahad Moshiri, and that's the problem. Like, managers, if they're bad, you can normally get rid of them, let's say between 6 and 12 months, right? Even Brendan Rodgers, people wanted him out, I would say, for about a year, and towards the end of that, he ended up going. Owners takes more like a decade, so I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but it really does feel to me like the relationship has changed, and we all know what it is because it's, you know, Vichai passed away. Because I don't see, and the problem is that people that keep making mistakes are going to keep making more and more. What we were hopeful with is, you know, their explanation to us was like, okay, we got relegated, we messed this one up, but we've got this action plan, we've done this internal review, we're going to come back bigger and better, learn from our mistakes and improve. And initially there were some promising signs, right? Exciting new manager, signed some really good players, some of which were young and had prospect. Oh, look, this looks way more like the Leicester City of a few years ago that were upwardly mobile. But we've come back to the Premier League and gone backwards again. And I hate to say it, but I mean, you know, Top's basically put the club back between 5 and 10 years. If we go down to the Championship, it's going to get, you know, it's going to be a long time before we even see a top half finish in the Premier League. It's going to be a long time. So, yes, I think all this stuff is well entitled. People may disagree, but, you know, so I guess it's like you're a musician. You're only as good as your last album. If your last album is called Relegation 2, the sequel, it's not a great look, is it?
Yeah, I mean, Project Reset, the group or whoever they are that obviously have planned this protest. I mean, they put out a tweet yesterday, and they actually said something in that tweet, which we've spoken about on the channel, Anil, earlier on in the window, if you remember. And they referenced the leaked messages to the press about the lack of spending. So remember Percy saying the priority will be cheap fullbacks, and I think it might have been Tanner and Percy said something about Leicester are not going to spend much. I mean, that has come from somewhere. That information has come from somewhere. And that's what I think they've done. They've leaked little bits to set fans' expectations that we're not going to spend much. And there's a comment here, which I don't really agree with too much, which says if they came out 1st of Jan and said we had no money or that we couldn't spend it, we could accept it. Now, a club's never going to come out and say that, Rich, on the opening of a deadline day. Oh, we've got no money to spend. You know, that's just not a message that they come out and tell the fans. But, you know, Rich, you are in agreement, right? The lack of transparency, the lack of communication is criminal. And they use John Percy and Rob Tanner as mouthpieces to try and set fans' expectations. And it's just, it doesn't help anyone. I mean, you get the chanting in the ground. You get, you know, things like this, just people taking the piss out of the owner and out of the director of football, all that stuff. It's just becoming toxic very quickly.
Yeah, no, it's It's a very sad state of affairs. You know what's really strange is, you know, when we were going into administration years ago, and everyone clubbed together and got us out of it. I was a lot younger then, but I still don't remember it being as toxic as it is now. Around the club, it was just a lack of finances and some poor decisions rather than Whereas it's just something's just going wrong at the moment, and I think there's a lot of debate about whether Top cares all this, and I just don't go down that narrative at all. I don't think you can say that he doesn't care, but you can absolutely level at him that he's probably not the best person to run a football club, or to own a football club. Now, obviously, on that comment that you brought up about lied to Rude, I don't think they lied to Rude based on his previous history of what he does if people do lie to him, and also some of the comments he said it several times, about knowing the situation, doing what they can, and who knows? Look, we might look unrealistic, but tomorrow we might have a couple of signings come through the door. It's unrealistic, but it might happen. And so for me, I think I would just say that I don't think Top is a good club owner. I think he cares, but I just don't think he makes the right decisions. Like I say, Susan Whelan, she gets brought up a lot, but a lot of the things that she does is more towards the business side of things rather than football, obviously. Whereas Rudkin, I absolutely go, yeah, he should have gone a long time ago, and we should have replaced him with someone that, has a lot more experience and can make these hard decisions. So for me, it's a horrible situation. It's toxic. Fans are, so divided on this situation. Look at this, even on this group of four, we've all got different opinions, and it shouldn't be that way. We should all be pushing in the same direction, and so it is what it is.
Manny, I know you are King. You are the chief fan. You run the fan club of King Power FC. What do you make to it all, mate? Because at the end of the day, here's a comment, from Sean. He says, you want respect, communicate with the fans so they don't come to their own conclusions. I know it's very much the culture, the Thai culture, right, to be like this, but it's not getting any better, mate, Manny. It's going to just keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I don't know how it ends, because there's only so much someone can take. And you've got to think that Top at some point will also just have enough and say, you know what, fuck you.
No, I think that's madness point of view. I've seen it all with this club. We've gone bankrupt, went to League One. We've had some horrific owners of the years with no investment. King Power is the top of the tree when it comes to the owners that we have had. In terms of communication, it's no different to when Vichar was running. I actually think it's actually a lot simpler than everybody thinks. Everybody's having a pop at Top, having a go at Rudkin, having a go at Whelan, usual candidates. The problem is transfer policy. Once upon a time, I think even Brendan Rodgers, when he finished 5th and 5th, had something like a net spend of like 9 million quid. We were never massive spenders. We won the Premier League with a team that cost 27 million quid, a first team. So we've never been huge spenders. The difference was there was a time then our signings used to be bang on. And I don't just mean the usuals, the Kantes and the Mahrezes. Christian Fuchs on a free transfer. Robert Huth for 3 million quid. Kasper Schmeichel, 1 million quid. Drinkwater, 1 million quid. And I know I could, beyond that, even then, Wesley Fofana, 30 million quid. There was a 70 million pound player that you got for 30. The number of James Maddison, the number of strike rates that we used to sign good quality players and be able to move them on generally for a transfer fee that would keep the machine moving and we remained competitive. The difference is that we've had similar budgets to spend as those days, but we just keep making mistakes, too many mistakes. And I think Top has already recognised this. So I think we're already partially on the way to recovery. And the way that I would say that is he changed the head of recruitment when we got relegated last time. And we had Martin Glover come in. Now, someone's going to turn around and say, well, what good has it done? We're in the same problem. We're going to get relegated again. I think the problem is that there are two camps of signings. So there's Martin Glover signings, which are the younger players, Fatawu, Mads Hermansen, probably Mavididi, and Bilal. All these guys, when they move on from this club, will go for significant transfer fees, which will help the club. That gives you ammunition to move forward. The problem that we had is that we give managers almost too much say in transfers. That's not the way you do things. The manager walks out the door, you're stuck with his players. Cooper walks out the door, we're stuck with Skip for 5 years. We need to take the recruitment out of managers' hands, because managers might be here 10 games. They might not be here 5 years. So if we give Martin Glover full control of transfers and don't cater for the manager what he personally wants and say, look, we'll provide you the squad. Your job is to coach, play them, line them, train them. That's exactly what Brighton do. Consistency in their transfer policy. So I think we're already getting there with Martin Glover. We just need to give him more influence and managers less influence. And all of a sudden, we'll get more signings like we have of Fatawu with Mads. And it's not just about 50, 30 million pound players. Mads was 5 million quid. Fatawu was 14 million. Bilal was 20. Well within our budget. If we just keep doing those kinds of signings, it might mean we go down this season, and it might mean we might be in the Championship for a year or two. But if we keep down that path, when we do come up, we'll have a young, athletic, hungry squad. And that's the kind of team that can progress to mid-table and beyond.
Go on, Anil, mate. I know you want to respond to the whole recruitment policy and all that stuff.
Well, I think the issue is a lot deeper there. Firstly, with the spending, and this is the fact, why don't we spend? We have been outspent by pretty much every single Premier League team, even in 2022. Where's that money going? That's a genuine question. Why are other teams, Ipswich have outspent us this season? Where's it going? Your squad value is going to decline. You can answer that in a second, but that's a fact, right? Then secondly, with the whole thing of the recruitment and things like that. But whose responsibility is that? We don't have a DOF, or we do have a DOF, but he's not doing his job. I mean, we've been caught out massively. We're living in yesteryear. We're still, a lot of our fans are thinking, like, oh, we're the great Leicester, we won the title. That was 10 years ago, right? And we've got progressively worse. Why has this happened? Because we're getting caught up. We're unable to find the same sort of talents that other teams are finding. We're unable to move on our players. You know, fair play, for example, to Forest, right? They bought so many players, but somehow they're able to bring money in or loan them out or move them around. We just get stuck with players like Vestergaard, like Fass, like Cody. Some of these players are quite recent, right? So all this stuff, it's not just the policy, but it's like the internal workings of the club. It's not working properly right now. And these things then spill out onto the pitch. So, and this is why the anger's been directed to the top, because ultimately, if I don't think it is his fault per se, but whoever is in charge of it, he's not doing it. And we'll find ourselves again. Here are the facts. We look at ourselves in January. We're going to end up with a worse squad than we started the window with. How's that been allowed to happen? We haven't spent. We're going to get relegated again. Awful.
Manny, what did you want to...
I agree with those points. But I don't look at things in a 6-month, 12-month, 18-month basis. So I'm trying to look 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
But that's over 3 years, Manny.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But you got to, I think I made this point before, though, but we do have a young owner who was thrust into the job, not really primed, ready for it, going through a grieving process, managing a multi-billion-dollar multinational company across multiple countries and time zones. He's never going to be able to do it day to day. He does delegate the responsibility to his father's choices for those positions. And for many, many years, those individuals did achieve the most insanity in terms of success. Okay, it's gone wrong. It really has. But I don't think the team that worked before can't improve again. You have to freshen up things like ideas about football, understand how the game evolves, and sign players accordingly. And I agree with things like contracts and all that stuff. But again, it's somebody saying, Yannick Vestergaard, for example, I'm sorry to pick on him again, but you know what? He's the kind of profile that we need for the next 3 years. Who gives a 33-year-old old aging centre-back a 3-year contract when we're going to the Premier League? Now, I don't think that's the recruitment or the scouting team. That's probably is a director of football more of an issue, I would suggest. So there are definitely errors.
Apparently it was Enzo Maresca. It was Enzo Maresca, mate. It's come out that Enzo Maresca.
Then I would blame Enzo for that. I would blame Enzo for that. Absolutely. I would say, it's not translatable to the Premier League. You need to upgrade there. So whoever was that individual, who, we've been through the skip thing before again. Those individuals, yes, either need to be re-educated, sounds like prison, re-educated or moved on. You know, they don't, their perception of the values that they're looking for fundamentally are wrong. And this is how we end up with Cody, Winks, Skip, Vestergaard, Fas, all these bunch of players who are on high salaries and cost significant transfer fees. I mean, you say it's only 10 million quid for Winks, 15 million quid for Vestergaard. We'd die for 10, 15 million pounds to spend right now. And Yai from Everton costs 15 million quid. You can do a lot with 15 million pounds. The problem is now with PSR rules, which weren't there in the olden days under Vichai previously, you just can't afford to make the mistakes. We used to make mistakes under Vichai, by the way. Slimani's, Moose's, and Adrian Silva's, and how many others, high expense players that did not work out. But we didn't care because the team were performing on the pitch. The difference is now it all gets magnified when you're in a relegation battle again. Club need to just import some knowledge about the structures we're trying to create and what is translatable across leagues. And then from that foundation, you start to build a squad with that profile. Not just, oh, we're in a relegation battle, let's get somebody in for 6 months because they might help us stay up. And if the championship, they might help again. That's not long-term thinking. It's always short-termism. And that's our problem.
I think, if you don't mind, there was a few things in that Shakespearean monologue that I sort of was thinking of. I've forgotten some of it, but what I would say to that, Manny, is, and by the way, I agree with pretty much everything you say there. There are a couple of bits where I think that there's a little bit of a contradiction in what you're saying, because you're saying, the manager shouldn't be given the free rein, but then when we point out that it's Enzo Maresca, that's why we've got Vestergaard, you go, oh, well, it's Maresca's fault. Well, whose fault is it? Because realistically,
that's what I said. Don't ever give it to the manager.
Yeah, no, exactly. And this is what I'm saying. Like, and I've said this before, and what I think it should, and a lot of clubs do this, by the way, and it always works. You get the manager to fit the style of play that you want to play, and you buy those. The manager doesn't really have a say. Yes, they obviously have. They can give their opinion, of course. You don't just say, by the way, we're buying this player and he starts tomorrow. That would be ridiculous. But if you look at, the film Moneyball as an example, great film about, baseball. And I know nothing about baseball, but I found it fascinating because of the way they did it. And again, it was very much, and that's how American sports is very much done. The manager, the actual person, the coach, the person that picks the team has very little say in who they get. They go, this is how we want to play. So we're going to buy these types of players. Can you work with that as a manager? If you can't, see you later. We'll get a manager that can. And that's exactly how it should be done. And I completely agree and that's where we went, I know we're not going back to it, but this is where we went wrong with Cooper, because it was such a different style of play. Then we've got all these players that don't fit, and then we bought players to fit Cooper, and then Cooper's gone. Now we're back to Ruben Nistelrooy. So that's where all those mistakes, though, are board level, and they are top level. So that's where I think we've talked about it a lot. That's where the criticism comes in, and where it is completely and absolutely fair. And so for me, it's just a very difficult situation where I think that the mistakes that they've all made over the last 3 to 5 years are just taking this in such a steady decline. Now, I also agree with so much of what you've said, Manny, in regards to the long-term future. But unfortunately, you have to balance long-term with short-term. And at the moment, our short-term is being absolutely decimated. And so we have to then go, right, let's put focus into the short term so that we can build on that to then plan for the long term once we're in a steady position.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Well, what we're doing now isn't working. So
yeah, I agree. Can I just say, look, right now, let's use an analogy of somebody close to us, right? We know we're the biggest team in the East Midlands, but that smaller club up in Nottingham that happened to be doing sky high, I know Wolfie's watching right now, they have Marinakis in charge. Marinakis was struggling at the bottom of the championship. He appointed Steve Cooper. We've appointed Steve Cooper. They managed to get promoted. They threw a fortune at it. A scattergun approach will sign a lot of players, and some of them did work out. But Marinakis himself I don't know how he's chosen all the style of players, but somehow altogether they've thought, do you know what? We need to have a clear identity here on what we're trying to do. This is where I completely agree with Rich. We need to play counter-attack football. So what do we need to play counter-attack football, and which kind of manager do we need to play counter-attack football? These are the players. There's the manager. Off you go. I doubt Nuno's been involved in signing too many of their players. He was bought with the overview in mind. So you're right, I agree with the sense that the overview from top, Rudkin should be, what is Leicester City's identity fundamentally? Or do we have a mishmash? We are able to sometimes play possession, sometimes play counter, whatever it might be. You come to that decision first. Once you've come to that decision, your transfer policy should reflect that decision always, at every level: academy training, under 21s training, under 23s training, first team training. Then the manager should reflect that style of play. And the manager may come and go, but the system, the styles remain the same, and the players will always fit that. You just have to keep interchanging the manager who can coach that style of play.
They did spend 300 million on players, though. That's my point about where's our spending gone. We haven't. If you look at our squad is, if you just look at the value of it, is the second or third worst squad in the Premier League. And where do we find ourselves? The third worst team in the Premier League. The two are very closely related. Someone just put there, we don't buy players. I agree. I don't get it. I don't know why we don't buy players. We haven't. All the other teams do. And we've got a worse squad, and which kind of means that it's irrelevant who the manager is or even what the transfer strategy is to some degree. If your squad just isn't good enough, and that's the reality we have to say, it doesn't matter who's in charge. We haven't got a good squad, so we're going to go down.
Is it because it's all been going on wages? You know, we've been given the high wages to the shit players. So then
maybe, but still comparatively, even if you take that into account, it's
how many bodies did we bring in the summer, boys? Anil,
well, not enough, clearly.
But how many numbers was it? 4 or 5 players did we bring in the summer? Was it 4 or 5?
It was Skip, Ayew, Bilal, Reed, Okoli, and then the loans, Edouard, Facundo.
So we've got 7 or 8 players in. How many of those have really worked out for the season or are a useful asset in our current?
Yeah, but as you said, Forest signed 30 players one season. I'm not saying you need to sign 30, but my point is they actually made their squad value extremely high, which is why eventually with a manager, they were able to both stay up and then sustain it. But we don't have a squad that's that good. Moneyball approach.
But they had a PSR blank sheet to start from because they had such a small budget in the Championship for many, many, many years. They didn't have huge wages to... We've always had dross on our books that we can't shift out the door. That's eating up salaries, eating up wage. Danny Ward, what was he on? 50 grand a week or something? 50, 60 grand a week? You know,
Cody
I think Alex,
on 70.
My favourite one was Alex Smithies. Do you remember him? Alex Smithies, brilliant name. 3rd or 4th choice keeper on 35 grand a week. I mean, it's total insanity. All that does is eat up it restricts the market somewhere else.
Hey man, he was fans player of the season 2022, Alex Smithies. I don't know what you're...
I agree. Yeah. All this fault is a lack of clarity in thinking, and I'm not saying mistakes aren't being made. I'm saying somebody has to just point out all of these errors and say, look, these are the errors we consistently make. Stop making these kinds of errors, and these are the successes we have. You know, and this is why those turn out into successes. And just as long as you try and be more careful and why you're signing a player and why you're letting a player go. And that's one of my biggest contentions we haven't mentioned. How do we not get players out the door?
Because of the wages they're on. Because of the wages they're on.
Pay 50% of the wages and get them out the door.
But Manny, we were just talking the other day that Luke Thomas, you know, we've apparently turned down a 5 million bid.
Crazy.
Why? Why have we done that?
Can't tell you.
I mean, Manny, you have a lot of sentiment, and you know, I think you even said to me that if we got relegated back to League Two, you would still say King Power in, right?
I don't think that's realistic, isn't it? I don't.
No, but it's hypothetical, mate. But you said that you would still be. Until
I am sure that there is a better option in anything, I'll stick with what I've got. And the current trend for modern football owners, largely, it's either roughly 2 options. You've either got American owners or you're going to have Middle Eastern owners. Now, if the Qatari investment fund or some Middle Eastern, you know, wealthy oil state wants to come in and say, you know, we'll buy King Power, we'll buy you out, here's 500 million quid, we'll have the club, and we're going to stick in another 500 million quid and go crazy. Well, for a start, you couldn't, because PSR doesn't let you do that. How much money have Newcastle been able to spend? They've got unlimited cash, Newcastle. They are still restricted in what they can do. So the same problems will happen. Whoever's in charge, whichever budget you have to be ultra efficient with it. And that is not really the ownership or even the director of football. It might be the head of football, the head of recruitment, or the manager. I suspect it's a combination of these people. But it's that discussion, you know, when they have a final meeting about a player. So I'm in the boardroom. Rudkin's sitting there. So what have we got? Okay, we've got this player. Vestergaard, yeah. Oh, of course, we know Yannick. Right. Manager wants to give an extension. His passing's good. He fits the profile. We're going to play, Enzo ball moving forward. Yannick is a great player. We can keep him on a free. We don't need to spend money on a centre-back. Hands up. Who thinks that's a good idea? If you put your hand up, walk, go. You're gone. You don't know what you're doing. Replace that person for sure. All right, but I don't think Top's that person, or even Rudkin's that person, to be honest. I think it's somebody else, and whoever that somebody else is, that's the issue. Is that somebody keeps pushing these horrendous decisions. I agree that they shouldn't be signed off. Like, you shouldn't be saying 90 grand a week for a 33-year-old who's really slow and has been in the Championship, and last season when we were in the Premier League didn't even play. All mistakes. I agree with this stuff. But it's just a small change that can change the mentality that can reap rewards down the line.
Well, there we go. We have just over 24 hours of the deadline of the transfer window to go. Stupidly on Blue Tinted Glasses, we are doing a deadline day stream. We will be talking a lot about everything other than Leicester, I imagine. But yeah, tomorrow, big day of content. So as always, the Monday night live call-in show will be on at 7 p.m. For an hour. So make sure to join us for that one if you want to come in and have your say. And then from 9 p.m, there is the transfer deadline day live special. So we will be live from, get ready for it, 9 p.m. all the way to about, well, who knows, maybe 12, maybe 11. It depends how things go, of course, but definitely 11. Definitely 11. So 9 to 11 tomorrow for the transfer deadline day live special. And Manny will be there for the whole thing because he can't wait. He's buzzing. It's like Christmas for him. Although he'll end up getting coal in his stocking, unfortunately. So
Bar humbug.
Yeah. Also, though, coming up next, actually, no, I was going to say coming up next Friday, but we've realized it can't happen next Friday because there's a match. There's a match next Friday. So the Friday after. So we're still 2 weeks away, but we'll get there. We'll announce it more properly a bit sooner, a bit closer to the time. But there will be a brand new show, Late Night Leicester, coming up. But we'll reveal more a bit closer to the time. Rudkin buying fax rolls as we speak, Tony says. Leicester need to get Manny as a dog. What do you mean by that?
I think he means DOF, but I actually prefer the idea of Manny as a little dog next to top side. Go and get the contract for Vestergaard. Yeah, bring it.
That's my Vestergaard response.
Don't worry, I am going to get a little tumbleweed video to play many times tomorrow evening on the transfer deadline day special. That will be a part of the show. Thanks to Nil, thanks to Manny, and thanks to Rich as always. Yeah, Sean says the transfer stream will be a BDSM stream with only M flipping. There we go. Right. Cheers all. We'll see you tomorrow evening from 7 o'clock all the way till midnight. And enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I know it's going to be hard, but cross your fingers and hope for the best. That's all we can do. See you in a bit. Cheers. Bye-bye.